Spider-Man. I'm young and I'm in my prime. Well, I don't pick my jobs. I'm ready for any old kind. Yes, I'm a real young man, a brand new 25. Yes, I'm a real young man, a brand new 25. Well, I'm willing, I'm able, I'm frantic, much alive. Well, I'm 6 feet tall, I ain't no hand-me-down. Yes, I'm 6 feet tall and I ain't no hand-me-down. Well, I got a gal in town who calls me Good Rockin' Brown.
Grab a seat, we're going to start the service. So, hi everybody. I'm Don Misraje. I'm one of Art's close friends, just like you all here, and family. So great if I can be here today at Hollywood Forever. This is the most ideal place for Art to be. One of the first hangs with Art, myself, Art brought me to this cemetery and showed me around and showed me the graves. At the time it was called Hollywood Memorial. I spent a little time with Art and Jennifer and my wife Kathy in Paris, and Art continued to show me graveyards. He showed me Adolphe Sax, the inventor of the saxophone, Edith Piaf gravesite. So I think this is really fitting for Art to be at this particular cemetery. To get started, we're going to watch a little poker party compilation that Art had made back in the day, highlighting the show. After that, Skip Heller is going to do the eulogy, possibly with the help of Jim Dawson, if need be. And after that, anybody who would like to tell a story or a memory about Art, come on up. We're going to have a few people first, but come on up and please share any kind of story or memory about Art. And we only have the room really till 4, so if you could make it a few minutes, that'd be great. I know it's hard because there's so many stories about Art and so many funny stories about Art. So right now, enjoy the poker party compilation put together by Art Fein.
She loves to watch. She loves to watch. She loves to watch. As the house stays happy, little girl's heart, she watches Mr. Silver Berkeley copper clothes in the dark. Her other sparkles for her exercise. She looks through the window in the other girl's eyes. She loves to watch.
Okay, hi, Art Fein. Art Fein's Poker Party coming to you from Hollywood with special guests, big girl Jessie. Baby Jessie, say hi to the folks. Hi.
Hi.
And I'll see you later. Thanks. Hi, I'm Art Fein. Welcome to the Poker Party. Hey!
My wife had a stand-up for a while. One of the things she said was why people from Chicago were so ugly was, uniformly so ugly was because they would just be standing on the L tracks, just kind of going, just grimacing into the wind.
I don't know if I mentioned to you, like eating Raoul, my connection there, that's my apartment that you were...
You're kidding?
No.
I didn't know that.
Oh, I'm sorry. So that's my
We
apartment.
go way back.
Yeah, that was my couch you were strangled on with your love beads.
We go back to 81 and probably before at the Troubadour in the 70s.
Yeah.
That's right, with Mary Warnoff.
Is that some
60 Plymouth. That is the biggest fins. I'm sure they're
But
higher
see,
up
by
the ground.
then it had gotten, oh yeah, you're going to raise your fins that high?
Yeah.
Wait till next year.
I'll see you, Fein, and raise you.
Hey, it is a poker
Yeah,
party.
that's
Well, for one purpose Elvis did serve was like in the late 60s, hillbillies, see, were never meant to be hippies, you understand? So he, I think, gave them, an alternative to being hippies growing their hair. He grew lamb chop sideburns, but there were some cultural aspects to Elvis
That's it.
necessary for the hillbillies.
Most of the Nashville groups and the California country artists had been wearing those things for 10, 15 years.
Did Buck and Merle and those guys wear nudie suits?
Not Merle Haggard, but Buck Owens, by all means. He wore, the Buckaroos wore beautiful They wore the short coats.
Yeah.
They were really
Right, yeah, I remember those, but I
sorta
don't
nice.
remember the spangles
Yeah.
and stuff.
But they didn't have them with marijuana leaves on them right here. That's the problem.
Really got exposed to R&B, and let me say that really before I got to be a big fan of the groups, the doo-wop groups, I got to be a big fan of Muddy Waters and Little Walter and Jimmy Reed and that style. And it was from hearing it on Southern radio stations.
But I remember well that Jack Good telling me when I was on it that they had complaints from the South whenever they had a black singer, well, Billy Preston say, if he sang a song or played near a white, there were complaints in the South, and the Southern stations would not show the program.
So Dinah Washington said, "Screaming Jay, you've been seen. Why don't you leave?" I said, "Bring your big fat self off the stage so I can smack your gums off." And she came off the stage like a bolt of lightning, and I went through that door like 2 bolts of lightning. And I stood in the middle of the street and screamed. And the people started walking out trying to see what was going on, and I kept on screaming and beckoning them on. I took them right to my club.
Pussycat, pussycat, I've got flowers and lots of hours to spend with you. So go and make up your quick little pussycat nose.
It's like great people, and there's idiots in every art form. It just seems like the intellectual mumbo jumbo surrounding the art world is unusually impenetrable. But
heavy metal, that is something that is like fundamentally worthless. That's from like the toilet. There's no excuse for that anywhere in anybody's universe.
I don't agree with you.
Well, okay, it's your show. But
I told her she's too young, ain't gonna have any fun with an older man. She had too big, yeah.
And Yoko Ono called.
We gotta get out of here. Yeah.
And we gotta finish. I'll do it fast. Okay. So I met her and John Lennon for lunch. They read the stuff. They were trying to deport him at the time, so he understood what was going on.
He helped you financially?
They gave me $5,000 for it. The timing of that was so exquisite, so almost mystical, that it upset my ego, and that's why I went crazy and thought you were a spy.
This was Battle of New Orleans by Johnny Horton, I think. Moving up there, you know.
Oh wait, you guys.
That was the one where the British won.
That's right. You guys probably had the British version, didn't you?
Yes,
which
gave great offence. Especially to my dad. In the Johnny Horton version, the British turned tail and ran. So they changed it slightly for the British market and got an English guy, Lonnie Donegan, to sing it, and they changed it to the Rebels. That's right.
So who actually won?
I don't know. Well, it was a long time ago.
It doesn't matter, but the British didn't lose.
It was just a, coming together of 4 weird guys, and, I mean, I myself always tried not to sound like Chuck Berry and all those guys, and Ray couldn't if he tried, and Dinsmore was kind of floating over the top of everything, and Jim. He was into Elvis and stuff, but he was more into writing and acting and stuff.
What was the first record you bought?
My first record? Hound Dog.
Yeah. Till then, we're going to finish up this 5-card game very soon. I got 3 6s, which is pretty groovy, and something on my forehead.
The mesquite cold starting to grow a little cold? Is the sushi bar starting to grow a little mold? Is the nouvelle cuisine getting old and you need some dinner tonight? And you don't want no more meat and potatoes, no more Italian cheese and tomatoes. Get that bottle of Crystal down. Gonna do Cajun tonight.
I would never go in a bar that had guys that look that rough. That's all I can say.
I mean, if you don't have cable, you haven't seen that movie. But if you don't have cable, you aren't seeing us. So.
Yeah, so you saw it. You didn't like Ghostbusters?
Oh, well, I went there expecting hells a poppin', and it was all, I just...
It turned out to be about as funny as this show.
It was a little funnier than Dr. Detroit.
Really?
Yeah.
Just a little.
Just a little. Yeah.
Istanbul is no Londale. Ed McMahon is no Guy Lombardo. The placid goose gyrates a plastic orifice upon the gymnasium of doom. Your eyes, your lies. You wouldn't know love if it bit you on the thumbtack of Azusa.
And your eyes on a bottle at the bar. Everything I do makes her sad. If I say I love her, then I just make her mad. Nothing I can do make her love me too. Everything I do makes her sad. Everything I do makes her cry, oh my. It just breaks my heart in two when I hear a sigh. There is nothing worse than to know she hurts. Everything I do makes her cry. Call it love.
You know, one of the things about art and LA and Hollywood in the 80s, rockabilly was probably completely unknown. It was almost dying. Art kept yelling at the top of his lungs about rockabilly, and I think he kept it alive in LA. Today, I think it's in a pretty good place, and I think one of the reasons is because of art and the both of art. Now we're going to have Skip Heller come up.
Well, I saw a lot of, this is not part of the eulogy, but the one time Art and I ever went to a funeral together it was for Buck Owens. And, yeah, typical. What's that? I was there. That's right. You were the third person in the car. And Neil McCabe, who Art told me is a genius, and he was right. He said, you know, it's important to come and observe the thinning of the tribe, and seeing many friends of many years, not just Art, but also George Wendt and Doug Feiger. And boy, I forgot what a beautiful singer Doug Feiger was, and so many others. I feel like I'm following Streisand. But here we are, and that I have been specifically asked on this occasion to speak it's a terrible honor as I can name. Art was, as we all know, a completely incredible person. He was equal part Barbara Tuchman, the great historian, and Broadway Danny Rose. And my first few years in Los Angeles would have been really different without him. For one thing, I would have starved to death. Art and the late Ray Campy and Dave over there, I think they would call up every night and convene to make sure one of them was throwing a meal into me. And through the kindness of those three and a few other extremely generous souls, I learned how to make a life here. Not least of all, to always be as generous as I can be to young musicians who are in my orbit. Because Art always was, and there were others before, during, and after me. You know, even before I got here in '95, I knew about Art because of involvement with the Blasters, his great liner notes on a bunch of Rhino things and some blues imports that I had. The landmark LA Rockabilly album, which I think now that he's dead, we can say this out loud. It painted a lie of a town with a burgeoning rockabilly scene that we could all come here and get gigs. Thanks for that. But above all, it was this LA musical history tour book, which I bought in West Philadelphia in 1993, right after I got sober. And it was amazing. I reread it until I could quote it at length. It was an absolutely great rock and roll book. The historianship was flawless. The writing was really clear, sparkling, deeply felt, warmly funny, and completely self-effacing. And I would come to know that's because the author was all of those things. And I had no clue that I would contribute to the second edition of the book, and I couldn't be more proud if I had worked on the frickin' Power Broker. Because for all of Art's achievements as a promoter of live music, as a TV host, historian, band manager, it's my opinion that his greatness most brightly shows itself in Art Fein, the writer. His actual trained vocation, and this was a jack-of-all-trades guy, but his real thing was journalism. And he read really widely. Robert Caro, Carrie McWilliams, Dave Talese, Stanley Elkin, Herb Cain, just thousands of other people whose names escape me, but whose books he loaned me and I read. And he beautifully internalized his influences and combined them with humor, love, and real insider knowledge, as we know, because look at how many insiders are here. You know, like, oh, there's Bob Merlis. Oh, there's Dave Alvin. You know, it's all the guys whose names were on the backs of the records that I bought when I was a kid. So the first time I actually met Art, you were there, was at a birthday party for Jennifer at a Middle Eastern restaurant called Dar McGrev. And I told him I was a huge fan. He thought I was overselling. He actually called bullshit. And I pointed at him and said, don't show up, send a tape, which pops up throughout the LA book. And he laughed really loud, as you know the laugh. And we spent the night bonding over Bill Haley and Little Richard and all this stuff. And 2 days later, I was at the apartment, which was actually 2 or 3 apartments, a couple blocks east of mine, we shared with Jennifer and Jesse. And I got the full Art Fein treatment, and I'm sure any number of you know exactly what I mean. He's just showing me all this video that I had read about but never seen, starting with, and I'm sure a number of other people here would go, oh yeah, that. Up Above My Head by Sister Rosetta Tharpe, followed by a clip of Louis Jordan on the Steve Allen show in the mid-50s on a train turntable. And that actually had a late friend of mine named Bert Payne who died shortly before I came here. So that was an amazing thing. Gator Tail Jackson on Nat King Cole, just the whole library, and my head was spinning, you know, as it would when you would sit with Art for six hours. For those of you who are young, and by that I mean not me, before YouTube and all that, people traded for grainy VHS tapes of this mythical stuff. And the further you lived from the Pasadena swap meet, the more you had to offer in trade to get some of this. As Dominic Priori, the Beach Boys fans were the most usurious traders out of anybody. And so, you know, we would go through all this stuff just to get like 4 minutes of Joe Bennett and the Sparkle Tones on the Nat King Cole show. So Art not only had this sacred stuff, he gave you copies of it. And he made hundreds of mixtapes for his friends. Can I just see a show of hands for how many people here had a cassette tape called True Fine Rock? Yeah. And as we all know, every year in planning the annual Elvis birthday bash, he donated a month of 18-hour-a-day intense labor completely on the house. And he said yes to everybody. It didn't matter if you were Joe Schmo and the Kit Kats from Rancho Cucamonga, or one of the established professionals on the scene like James Infill. Art and Ronnie Mack, I don't know if Ronnie's here, but they did not have a velvet robe. They just had a red carpet, and everybody got to be on. He was selfless. And if you knew about something, whether it was a great record, restaurant, used bookstore in the middle of nowhere in the valley, movie, he shared it enthusiastically. And of course, that generosity was at the root of his most sustained achievement, Poker Party. And he interviewed hundreds of formidable people, all kinds, everyone from Dion to the members of the Circle Jerks, to Huggy Boy, to Bob Merlis. I mean, that show was a narrative that delved into technological, social, editorial, and the artistic evolution of popular music. And he invited us, his friends. And he unselfishly gave spotlight to our knowledge and let us ask questions. And frankly, he didn't need us. I mean, he was a great interviewer. But he made us a thing within. Poker Party was a document of our community. I mean, just as a way to trace Paul Bodie's singular evolution as a Los Angeles fashion player. So what you get for that fresh fish special line when I played behind Bootsy Collins. But it's a record of who we were, what we cared about, and what we talked among ourselves about the things that obsessed us. And make no mistake, man, Art was generally the smartest guy in the room. He would crossword puzzles in ink every day. He kept facts incredibly straight and recalled names and dates on demand. You never saw him going, no, wait a minute, I know this, in any episode of Poker Party ever. But he never pulled rank. He was always completely gracious. And I learned a lot from that. And through him, I met a lot of people whose work influenced my outlook as I was a kid coming up around Philadelphia. The writers Gene Scolati, Dick Blackburn, Joel Selvin, Paul Krasner, who we saw. Like, whoever thinks they're going to meet Paul Krasner? You know, he's always the guy that these great comedians are mentioning in interviews. And there you are, like, sitting with him drinking coffee, and he's going, yeah, Nixon had me on the kill list. And Art's just going like, yeah, that's just Paul being Paul. I also met the groundbreaking audio engineers Stan Ross, Dave Gold, and Larry Levine, who each befriended me and taught me things. I met Cliffy Stone, which, for those of you who understand country music, that's like meeting Moses. I met Phil Spector. I got to know Phil Spector, as many of us did here, because Phil said, Art, bring some people over, and, you know. And dearest to me, actually, he took me to meet my boyhood hero, Dr. Demento. And that was that was the moment that I felt like Richard Dreyfuss in American Graffiti, walking away from Wolfman Jack. I mean, that's a moment I will take to my grave along with my wedding. So for years, if Art was going somewhere interesting, he brought me. And as my modest professional fortunes have improved over time, thank you, Jennifer, for having a terrific hand in that. Art took pride in my progress, but never any credit for it. If Art believed in you, he was your advocate. He rooted tirelessly for Paul Hampton, for Chucky Weiss, Mighty Mo Rogers, Sprague Brothers, the Heaters, and very notably, the Blasters. But make no mistake, his outright paragon was Swamp Dogg. And he wasn't wrong about that either. So the generation of musical citizen scientists, as I call us, that he, along with Demento, Rock and Ronnie Weiser, Jim Dawson, and you know the others, you know who you are. You wrote the stuff that we can all quote at you. You know, that generation that you raised up with your liner notes, articles, radio shows, obviously Poker Party. Guys like me, Dave and Deke, Big Sandy, Cameron Davis, Alan Larman, Dominic Priori, we owe a debt that we can never repay. I mean, you guys are the old and infirm shoulders that we stand on now as very young people. And personally, I feel very fortunate that several times in the course of our friendship, Art and I actually said I love you to each other. I'll leave it to Jesse and Jennifer to talk about Art as a family man. That's really their privilege. I'm going to end these remarks with 3 short quotes. The first is from his beloved and my beloved Carrie McWilliams. And Art venerated Carrie McWilliams. I think he had a book that was signed by Carrie McWilliams, and if anybody finds it, he meant to give it to me. But he has a quote that I think sums up the art Fein regard for this place that he loved so much, and specifically this place. This was part of the tour whenever somebody from out of town would come. McWilliams wrote, "In all the world, there neither was nor would ever be another place like this city of the angels. Here, the American people were erupting like lava from a volcano. Here, indeed, was the place for me, a ringside seat at the circus." Which I think that's art all the way. The second is a quote from Sophocles. I was trying for Chuck Berry, but Sophocles wrote or said, "One must wait until the evening to see how splendid the day has been." So art, as my irreplaceable friend and mentor, your loss is my dark evening, but thank you for years of such splendid days. And the third and the last is from Merle Haggard, who you've heard of. And I think he speaks for each of us today. He said, "You have a friend in California who misses you.
I think Skip has said it all, so not much I can say. People just ask me, what does art Fein to do? I mean, does he have a job? And I would always say, and I would ask Art, what do you do? And he said, I don't know. But in fact, Art was always doing art. Sometime early in his life, when he had, he wrote the last name before his first name that said Fine Art, and he decided that his life was going to be fine art, and it really was. He came out here, he juggling everything, music, people. He brought us all in, and we were brought into the frame, and we became part of Art's art. By the way, I want to say that was my birthday present to Art. I think, I don't know, 1985 or something like that. On my iPhone, every day for like the last 5 or 6 years, at 2 o'clock, the thing pops up and goes ping and says, "Call Art Fein." And I've never taken the time to take it off. When I was driving down here, I arrived here about 1:55, and as I was walking over, it ping, it said, "Call Art Fein." So I'm going to keep that on there because every day I would love to call Art Fein.
This is one of Art's oldest friends in Los Angeles. As you probably everyone has like someone who really helped them, got them from one place to another. And I had a couple of Dr. Frankensteins, and one was one of my buddies, and Art was the other, and I'm the monster. And because he was, I really can't overstate what he meant to me and what he meant to everybody. I mean, hell, he made me famous, sort of, and because and I met him like at the Roxy in 1976. They were having a Del Shannon thing, a record company thing, and sort of record company people, and Art Fein and I and another guy, we weren't record company people. It sold out. They wouldn't let us in, but we did get in for the last show, seemed to run away, and from then on it was on, and I mean, I lived through Screaming Jay Hawkins, doing a play with Timothy Carey, going up to Screaming Jay's house, which had a coffin and Henry, and
in South by Southwest, which the reason why I started going to South by Southwest is he said, Bodie, man, we're like the Beatles down there. I said, yeah, right. Well, we weren't quite like the Beatles, we were more like Gary and the Pacemakers and the Circus. But you know, people knew me and all that other stuff, which wasn't important. But art, I'll just say this. I have too much to say. It'll take too long. I just want to say that when people ask me, I'll say two things. Like when people ask me about Paris, they ask me, will I miss Paris? And I always say, only when I breathe. And I'll say that about art, only when I breathe. And I'll also say, God, what else I was gonna say? I can't remember now. So maybe that's it. And all I can say to art is, I dig you, gonna miss you, and gonna see you next at the Twisting Place. I'll be in though.
Dave Stuckey, would you mind coming up here?
Yeah, this is a rough one, isn't it? It's hard to, literally my 40 years, I've written about this already, so I'm gonna repeat myself, but literally my 40 years in LA, I can't even imagine what it would be like without having met art very early on. It's almost like every fun thing I have done in 40 years has involved art in some way. Even the stuff I discovered on myself or whatever, it was always tied into art in one way or another. Somehow, if you were lucky enough to get in his magic circle, you could go down every rabbit hole you wanted with him. And it was all these things that I loved before I moved to LA. You know, rock and roll, rockabilly, old weird Hollywood, you know. Did you ever dream you would meet Timothy Carey and have him singing the opera when he walks into Musso and Frank's for lunch? I mean, it's all unbelievable when I think back on it. It seems like another life, and yet at the same time I think about it all the time. So, especially now here more recently. So I want to keep it moving so everybody can get up here that wants to say something. But I will say, in closing, we can continue to celebrate art like I do nearly every day. Something reminds me of it. We can mourn art's passing. But also don't forget, we can mourn the loss of income stream from every coffee shop in the Hollywood area, farmer's market, 101 Cafe. It goes on and on. So think about those poor people. Ridiculous. Yeah, we're gonna miss you, Art. I mean, that's an understatement, but thank you. Thank you.
There's so many important people in Art's life. I'm so sorry. I see Dick over here. Probably don't remember me. We hung out in Austin. I want to try to get everybody up here. So after Dominic, I don't know, maybe we turn it into a food fight and everybody just come up and just start telling some stories and memories of art. Because I can't do a priority thing. There is no priority. Art was special to all of us. Dominic.
I do a lot of public speaking engagements, and I can't even bear to do this. First time I was on Art Show, 1987, and from that point on, he introduced me to all of his writer friends, and I had nothing, nothing, just a couple of things for a Graham Parsons magazine, and that's it, fanzine. And that's what I did, is I did fanzines, and then eventually became a real writer because of art. And
like in 1989, Audrey Moorhead and myself were in Rolling Stone magazine because Art told somebody, "Oh, you got to talk to this guy. He's out of his mind on Brian Wilson. It's really great." And Mark Seliger came and took pictures of us. That really helped me a lot because I had just put out a book called "Look, Listen, Vibrate, Smile" about the Beach Boys' Smile album, which had been, I think y'all know the story. And the book, I was told that we'd only sell like a couple thousand copies to Beach Boys fans, and that's about it. But because I was in Rolling Stone that time, the book ended up selling 40,000 copies, and I was on my way to have a career as an author. That's simple, and that's the kind of thing Art would do, like that. He wrote this piece in LA style, I guess in the late 80s when I first met him. And he's sitting in his living room, and it's an amazing piece, and I wish we'd all share it with each other somehow. I got a copy of it, scan it, something, and we should all see it. And the article was basically, I don't remember the title, but it was, it could have been titled, "How to Effectively Live in the 50s." And it had place 1, place 2, place 3, and we would talk about even places like living in the cafeteria, which nobody was talking about yet, and saying, "Yeah, that's great, you can go to the dinner table and hi grandma," like things like that, and it was just like today. So when I moved to San Francisco, he contacted Joel Selvin within a week. The San Francisco Chronicle's music editor was in my apartment, saying, "Who can I introduce you to?" And Joel Selvin was doing an Art Fein thing. He introduced me to BAM or Tower Records Pulse or whoever was in town, and suddenly I had tons of writing gigs when I first moved there, and eventually I got a contract for my next book, Ride on Sunset Strip, Rock and Roll's Last Stand in Hollywood, because Joel Selvin, was with Chronicle, and eventually Chronicle Books signed me, so one thing led to another. Even when I went to New York, in his coterie of friends, they're all writers and stuff, I just called Art and says, "Hey Art, do you know Nick Toshis? I really want to meet this guy." And one thing led to another, and Nick Toshis was buying me a big Italian dinner in Greenwich Village, talking about Dylan for half an hour, and that was great. We talked about 2 hours about stuff, and it was great to meet Nick Toshis. And he also made me the connection with Billy Miller and Marion Lena from Norton Records and Kicks Magazine. And I'm sorry I didn't bring the picture or send the picture in, but there's a photo of the 4 of us over at the 101 Cafe. And Marion wrote me and said this. He said, "I'm saddened by Art's departure, and my best hidden memories of him are connected with you. You could see his eyes glow with agreement and appreciation when you said anything. And, Art, you knew what to do with all of us and knew where to send us. And, people like that around anymore. They just paint, this is a really fucked up, tough town. People step on you all the time. And Art finds the fucking opposite of that in Hollywood. Thank God." I don't know if anybody would like to come on up. Come on up. You're familiar because you were on the book. Yeah. Did you work at Warner Brothers? Yeah. Did you set Art up with all the videotapes? No. You didn't take him to the mailroom? Merlin did. Wow, that's an amazing story. So, the mailroom.
I'm Mark Levinson, and I guess it's up to me to say something about how annoying Art could be. Because nobody has done that yet. He used to take these long walks down Melrose, and I would sometimes show up and walk part of it with him. And there were 3 things about it. One thing is you couldn't go more than a couple blocks without somebody who you knew, seeing him. So I started to call all these people FOA, friend of Art. And then there was a class of people who just said, "I saw you on television." So they didn't know him, but they knew him. And the other thing, he would stop and he had this little flip folder, and he would go, and then he would go. He'd never tell you what it was. So that was a little annoying. But the big annoying thing was he used to read like big books like Dos Passos and Dostoevsky and stuff. And as he walked down Melrose, when he finished the page, he'd tear it out of the book and he'd throw it away. So the first time I saw him do this, I said, "Art, you're desecrating literature. You cannot do that." And he said, Well, I read the pitch. What do I have to carry all these pages back with me? And I said, but it's Dostoevsky. And he said, well, he's been dead a long time. You know? And I just was so horrified, and I could never get him to stop doing it. I've never met anybody else who treated books that way or had that attitude. But it was kind of art logic because it didn't make sense. Why should he carry all those pages back? So that's the only thing wrong with it.
Larry, can you come on up? Yes. Without Merlis, we probably would not have as many Art Fein poker parties. He introduced Art to the mailroom supervisor, and there were piles of tapes that were sitting there, and he introduced him to the mail supervisor and asked if Art could have a couple tapes. And this lasted 10 years, and he enlisted me at some point in the mid-90s, and we were taking truckloads of tapes. He was feeding the tapes to other public access people, and also to Jimmy Maslin, to his film transfer house, where he was recycling them and putting dubs of something weird videos and public domain films. So thank you so much for getting involved with the mailroom.
Paving the way for him to rip off Warner Brothers records.
He loves it.
It's my pleasure. Apropos something Mark talked about, the tearing the pages off the book, Art was nothing if not efficient, and he thought about efficiency a lot. And as he got into an elevator, he didn't press one because he knew it was going to go there anyway. And I quote him every time I'm in an elevator, this springs to mind, and I always push one. It could just sit there or it could go up. But Art had great confidence that it would go down. They often do. I'm here with Swamp Dogg, and that reminds me of an album cover, Swamp Dogg's great album, I'm Not Selling Out, I'm Buying In which is the mise en scène is Swamp Dogg doing a soft shoe on a conference table, chaired by Major Bill Leibowitz, whose family is here today, and Art, and a few of others of us, and we all kind of looked like prosperous businessmen. And I gave Art a suit, so he would look the role in the excess suit, which I never got back, but that's and apropos of Swamp Dogg and Dick Blackburn and Gene Scolati and Art, we put together a series of New Year's Eve parties under the aegis of Pumping Piano Productions. I'm sure that was Art's idea because it relates to Jerry Lee Lewis. And we had this non-profit New Year's Eve party. We didn't want to make money. Well, it would have been bad if we made money, but we didn't. We wanted to break even. So we'd go out starting around Thanksgiving and try to hustle tickets and say, you can see Roy Brown. And you had to explain who Roy Brown was to them. Screaming Jay Hawkins, et cetera, and we'd meet every now and then. We'd say, how'd you do with your ticket sales? And Art would just put a pile of cash on the table that I sold this many. Like, how many tickets is it? I don't know, here's the money. So there, again, why write it down? He's an efficiency expert. It's the same thing anyway, so I think that's part of his legacy, is, do away with bureaucracy. I have to agree with that. So anyway, I could go on and on about fun times with Art. I will mention that about 49 years ago, I moved to here to LA and worked for Warner Brothers in Burbank, and Art Fein happened by my office, and the assistant I had said, look out for that guy, because if you let him in his office, you'll never get rid of him. This was true. I was happy about it, and was happy about it for many, many years thereafter, and other people in that same building were thrilled to have Art in their office and helping himself to much needed supplies. Danny, do you want to come up and say something? Yeah.
hearing you all just millions of stories have gone through my mind just sitting here. And the first time I met Art was at the beach, and which is odd for him. But because the only time he ever came to the beach, I invited him down once to Laguna. And he came down wearing a sport jacket on the beach and said, you know, what's the big deal? Anyhow, when I first met him, it was a party that I had booked Ray Campy and the Rockabilly Rebels. At that time, Billy Zoom was the guitar. And when they came in, there was a guy with one of those white boy afros and a corduroy jacket. It was our Fein. And I became friends with him almost instantly. And I'd say about 3 weeks after that, I was talking to him. And he said, you know, I knew you anyway. I saw you before. And I said, you saw me before? Where? He goes, well, I was at Chandara. He was a big fan of Thai food. So I was at Chandara. I sat a couple of tables away. You were talking to this girl about Hank Williams, and I said, there's one of us. Now, another thing that I'll make this short, but at one point, Rhino wanted to get their staff educated to rock and roll, the store. So they got Art. I don't know if Art inveigled them or they did the opposite, but he was teaching them rock and roll, the staff, about 5 people. And Art loved to outsource things, of course. So he called me up. He goes, hey, Dick, you know a lot about swamp pop, so you come down and tell him about that. And he called up Gene Scolati. He said, Gene, you know about San Francisco. You come down and talk about that. You know, the 60s. So we went down, and then people had their little notepads and stuff. And he was walking around, and he said, you know, the Everly Brothers really important rock and roll act. Here's one of their records. Johnny is a Joker? Okay. Dick, why don't you come up here and tell the people about Swamp Pop? I said, okay. So I come up and I go, well, there were some famous people out of Louisiana Swamp Pop, like Dale and Grace, Jive and Gene, Rod Bernard. He goes, thanks, Dick. Gene, why don't you come up? And so we talked about that a lot afterwards. Anyway, the last thing I'd like to say is one of his old girlfriends once told me, and we were talking about him, that a lot of people had told her, well, many people, that he may have come from another planet to collect information here. And I felt, possible. And I wouldn't have had it any other way. It was a really great ride. I love knowing him. And yeah, he was irritating sometimes, but shit, most people are boring. So, thanks a lot, and I'll miss you. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Billy be next.
I don't look like Billy.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, I just want to say thanks to Art. There's a lot of artists that were just trying to come up in the early 80s, and we all met Art. I don't even know where I met him at, but as soon as I started playing gigs in town, I knew him. He was everywhere. He invited me and my brother over to his house. As soon as we met him, he was like, hey guys, come over and listen to some records. What? Okay. So me and my brother thought, okay, cool. So we go to his apartment. Now we're living out in Orange County, and we're driving up from Hollywood. We get to go to his apartment, El Cerrito, that little apartment. And we're like, he's in the Hollywood apartment. He's got this cool little Volkswagen Bug. He's got a custom license plate. We're like, this guy is like some hipster dude. He wants to hang out with us. We're like young kids. My brother's 18 and 21. And we go in his house, and we'd never been to a record party before. We only listened to records at home, like me and my brother would listen to records we had. So he's like, have you heard this one? Pulled some weird record out. This is Vince Everly. Vince Everly. I'm like, who's Vince Everly? Some weird Elvis sounded-like guy, right? Singing Such a Night. And he puts it on, and this record's really cool. And then he sees us, like, loving this, so he pulls out another one and puts another record. He's just playing all these records, and we're there. It felt like we were there for 8 hours. Listening to records with Art. So it was our first time to go to a real record party. I know a lot of people here have been to a lot of those, but for us, just two young kids from Orange County, to experience that, and then Art started putting us on shows. Because on Wednesday nights that he had lingerie, which was incredible because everybody would come to that. People like John Fogerty and Bruce Springsteen would come. So all these people learned about all these new bands like the Rockin' Shadows and Blasters and all these different bands that were sort of trying to make a name for themselves. So it was a really, really interesting time, and I just want to say thank you, Art, for being so generous to us. I love his enthusiasm. I remember just the process of things were important to Art. Like he'd call me and say, okay, there's that picture of Elvis. He's wearing the blue jacket but he's wearing the belt. He's got those other shoes on. Now I got this other picture. He goes, is it the same day? And so we would get about what Elvis was wearing that day, or why he had this jacket on, and who he was standing next to. And we would kind of sort of put the puzzle together. This is before the internet, so we didn't have any of that to work off of. We were just working off of solid pictures and basically just trying to put the puzzle together. And I remember after my brother was killed in 1985, and after the funeral, Art had come over to our house, and he said to my mom, can I see the room? And he walked in to see the room that me and my brother basically, growing up in, and I stood at the door and I saw Art walk in there, and he's looking around at the walls and all the pictures, Hank Williams and Elvis and all the different things we had on the wall, and he was just taking it in. He was like going, these guys were living in this world, in this little room. And so when I heard that Art had passed, that was the first thing that came up for me, was just that inside I saw a part of Art, like his brain just working, and him looking at this process of these two young guys that were so enthusiastic about music, and just like he was, and just to be able to see that, and it really, really touched me that day when I saw that. And that's the first thing that came up when I found out that Art had passed. So I just want to say, Art, thanks so much for being so kind to me and so many other musicians. I don't think he knew what he was doing with us, but he really helped us out a lot. And just because we were there and he loved it, and he just sort of promoted people just because he was interested in all that stuff. That was his passion. He was a very passionate person. And I just want to say thanks. Art, God bless you.
Hi, I'm Billy Altman, and I guess I'll give everybody a view from the other coast, okay? I'm a New Yorker, and I first met Art when I was coming out to LA. I was very good friends with Richard Meltzer, and Richard took me to one of the tapings of the poker recording. This would be early on the cigar years, I guess, as you would call it. And most of those episodes would be Meltzer inventing a new card game for them to play every time they were out. My first time here, of course, as mentioned before, Art left to take people from out of town and show them this place. And the first three gravestones he took me to see were Mel Blanc, of course, Peter Lorre, and Johnny Ramone, and make sure to tell me, he's not really buried here, which is true. Johnny was so paranoid that he didn't want to be buried here. He's buried in another location, but the little memorial for him is here. I got on Art's good side because I mentioned to him once in passing that there was a fairly obscure, not obscure, Susan Hayward movie. I think it's called I Want to Live, in which she plays an alcoholic. And it's a scene in which she reaches absolute bottom, and she winds up in like a Bowery Mission kind of fleabag hotel, having spent the night with some guy. And the guy who rolls out of bed and leaves the room uncredited was Timothy Carey. When I told Art that I knew that, he thought, okay, this guy must know something. He told me to watch Shack Out on 101, so I could see Lee Marvin and Len Lesser
having their bizarro fight. And of course, he took me to the diner. He took me to all different places, and I learned about the fact that you could bring your own coffee mug to a coffee shop and then take it home to many of his friends. He took me to a place to get French dip. I don't know if this would get me related. Yeah, okay. I don't remember any of the names of these places. And of course, the farmer's market we took you for, well, get this over here, get this over here, get cake over here, get ice cream over here. I was able to share that when he came to New York. I took him to get some really good lentil soup in Tarrytown. I don't drive much. I got my license when I was almost 40. He had a wonderful time watching me trying to parallel park. Giving that particular kind of laugh. He turned me on to a great deal of music. We ran a lot at South by Southwest. I was proud enough to have turned him on to Dexter Romweber. Dexter Romweber, a rockabilly guy, but not from, this crowd here. The last thing I want to tell you, obviously we'll miss him greatly, which is that the last time I saw her, which is a few years ago, on my last trip to LA, I went over to his place, sat on one little folding chair that you could sit on, and he's kind of on the floor, and we're watching TV, and he's got the sound of the closed captioning, and he puts the sound up on, and he says to me, "Watch the closed captioning, they're getting everything wrong. They're spelling everybody's name wrong." I said, Art, don't you realize that this is getting done like electronically? He goes, no, they're spelling everybody's name wrong. If anybody is going back to the Sherman Oaks area later, I could use a ride.
One quick note, we have an extra 5 or 10 minutes, so whoever wants to speak, I take it.
I'll try to keep it short. I'm Randy Lewis. I wrote about music for the LA Times for about 4 years. And I probably my most regular interactions with Art every year, at least around the Elvis birthday party. We would always connect, and I would ask him, what was coming up this year. But I met him before I went to the LA Times. I had written for the equally illustrious Cashbox magazine, and that was my first job out of college. And Art was one of the first people I met when I came up here. We were on the 9th floor of the RCA building on Sunset, and I started learning about how the music industry works and how it doesn't work. And Art was one of the coolest, most fun people I met. He was at Electra Asylum at the time, which for me was one of the pinnacle labels because it had all the brilliant singer-songwriters, Jackson Browne, Joni Mitchell, the Eagles, Laura Nyro, the people that Art said were not my rockin' cup of tea, but they were good. And so he would come over and interact with us at Cashbox, and I will always be indebted to him. He introduced me, set me up for my first interview with John Prine, for which I am forever grateful. Introduced us to Steve Goodman and Trades at that time. Very few people in trade magazines were interested in John Prine and Steve Goodman. But a couple of us were. So one of the first things that came to mind when I heard that Art had passed was this brilliant thing, and as Skip said, his real calling was writing. And he sent a letter to the people in the editorial departments at Cashbox, and it was brilliant. It was beautifully printed. I think at the top it said, from the desk of Art Fein, all printed out, except there were strategically placed blank spaces throughout this formal letter that he sent to us. And I still have my copy. It's deep in a storage unit somewhere, and I've reconstructed it to the best I can, so apologies to Art, but you'll get the idea, where the blank spaces were handwritten words from Art. So it said, "To all my friends at Cashbox, I just wanted to let you know how much I always read and appreciate everything you do at..." Your coverage is always far superior to what I read in Billboard and Record World. Honestly, nobody I know in this business takes Billboard and Record World seriously. So whenever anyone asks me which trade publication I count on day in and day out, week in and week out, I always say, and the brilliant thing about it is so utterly cynical and sweetly endearing. And that was Art's gift. And I loved everything I got to do. He dragged me down to the Palomino, introduced me to Gary Stewart. So many different things that I learned about because of him. And everybody here has a story like that. So thank you, Art.
Hey, Diego, could you come up here? Anything about art? Oh, we got Rip too.
All right.
Get you up there.
Thanks, brother.
We're really running out of time here, so I hate to say it, I apologize. Oh, cash box?
Yeah. Centerfold cash box. Good minutes. I just want to say Art Fein was a good guy. He was my friend. He always tried to help me. I did poker party about 10 times, and he was always there for me. And when I was in Tokyo, I was singing for Richard Branson. He put me on Virgin, and Art helped promote my album when they had me tour all the Virgin stores. And you talk about Cashbox. George Albert was one of my best friends. I must have been on Cashbox 500 times in my lifetime. I'm 90 now, so. But I just want to say thanks for everybody for liking Art. He was a real cat. He loved Elvis, loved the oldies, he loved the 50s. And I don't care anything past 1964. Right now I'm at the Smokehouse. You know, I'm going on my 14th year there in Burbank, across the street from Warner Brothers. And I just want to say hello to everybody. Tim Gallon Allen called me and told me about Art. And it made me sad. That guy was really great. I'm going to miss him. Everybody in music, from the Blasters, when they backed me up as the Blue Shadows, you know, the Mojo Nixon, when I did his his video about Elvis, me and Chris Christopherson and Jerry Lee. Art was really great. He's always there for me. So I just want to say hello to everybody and thank you. Thank you all.
Well, like a lot of you, I'm here because of rockabilly music and Art and his great knowledge and love of really everything. I didn't know him in the beginning. First time he showed me that picture, I said, "Why are you showing me this picture of Cat Stevens?" Because he was always so immaculately coiffed with his hairdo and his rock and roll attitude. But I'm one of dozens, maybe hundreds of people that Art supported. He was always ready to book me at the lingerie shows. He was very supportive. He became my photographer. He was a great photographer because he told me, "Rip, I'm vain. I know what people should look like. I know what you want to look like." And you think that all photographers should know that. They don't. He knew how to look through the lens. And he, some of his pictures ended up on album covers, and we became great friends. Not only the music though, because we took our daughters down to a rare thing to the beach, right? Down to Abalone Cove. So we became great friends and missed the heck out of him. And I'm so thankful for everything he's done. Thank you, Art. We really
We're running out of time, but is there anybody else who would like to? Swamp, get up here. Next to Jerry Lee is our favorite artist.
Yeah, it takes a long time to get up here. I just want to say that I was a damn good friend. I got on one of his Elvis Presley t-shirts from the 1800s. He insisted that I played, and I enjoyed it. You didn't really have to insist after the first time. For the birthday parties for Elvis. And I loved the guy. He was He was kooky as hell, but he was my man. He was all right. He introduced me to a lot of rockabilly acts. And I became good friends with, I think it was Ray Campbell. Yeah. Ray Campbell still around? Oh, that's right. Okay, but anyway, I just want to say I appreciate it. I loved him. He was great. We all will miss him in our own way. And we were blessed with him being put on earth for us. Thank you.
I just want to say real quick, I don't need a mic. My name is Mo Rogers. Art discovered me 50 years ago. 50. And I lived in Venice, California. I'm an old hippie. And I went to the beach. And I was playing in this club. And Art came in, but I was doing nothing but original music, because that was my thing. I said, I do nothing but my music, not top 40. And I'm playing the piano, doing my stuff. And Art came up to me and looked at me and said, "Who are you?" That's what he said. I was a nobody doing my music, and Art wrote me up in the papers. First time, papers. And people like Booker T started coming down, Steve Crocker, Duck Dunn. And they played on my records, and I was saying, "Thank you, Art Fein." Art was a genius, but more than that, Art was the artist. Thank you. God bless you.
They come on. It's going to be hard to speak after you listen to brilliant music journalists and wonderful artists that are here, but I just wanted to listen, and you need to hear from a girl as well about art. As a young, not young, I was never young as a promoter, but as a new promoter, I was always thrilled when I'd look out in the room. I'd be so flattered that Art would come to my show. Of course, the draw was Jimmy and Dave and Dee, or Three Bad Jack, but I was thrilled that he was there. And one time I saw him, and I would have a lot of fun talking about Phil Spector for the shoot, because I would see him at Phil's house. But one time I turned around at a show and I saw him at the front door with a handful of, I don't know, $1 bills, or I don't know, water money. And he was giving it to the girl at the door, and I ran over and I said to the girl, "If you ever see Art Fein at a Reverend Martini show, he's never to pay." And he's been a mentor to me and to every promoter, and he's helped a lot of musicians make a living, and we take care of this guy. And he said, no, Karen, no, I insist, I want to support your show. And I really appreciated that about him, and then he turned around and said, "Don't wait more." And I never forgot, I hear him in my head all the time as I'm giving away the farm. Be hospitable, but don't give away the farm.
Just like in public access, we're being cut off, we get our 30-minute mark, we have to wrap. But we're going to put together a live show for Art on Elvis's birthday, and Lisa and Alan, I hope we're going to be able to put this all together. It's going to be 2026, January 8th. And in closing, we have the Persuasions doing their special song to Art Fein.
Boom, 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 Art Fein, boom, 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 Art Fein, boom, 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 Art Fein, yeah, boom, boom, Art baby, so doggone fine. Watch him on TV all the time. Whoa, whoa, yeah, Art Fein, boom, 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 he thrills me, boom, 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 thrills me, boom, 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 thrills me, yeah, boom. To see the polka party on TV. Used to watch him on Channel 3. Whoa, whoa, yeah. Art Fine. Art Fine. Art Fine. Art Fine.
I just wanted to thank everybody for coming, and I wanted to thank Kathy, and I wanted to thank Franklin and Dawn, and well, this is Jesse and I talking now, and just thank you guys for putting this together. Skip, thank you, and thank everybody that came up to speak, and just thank you guys so much for coming. He'd really dig it, you know, he'd really dig this, so thank you.
All right, hope to see everybody on Elvis's birthday.
It's so lonely in this parkland. He's coming with me to the bright lights downtown Marie. I said, hey, pretty girl, don't you understand? I just want to be your loving man. Marie, the sun is down.
Hey, Art, thank you for getting Shakin' Stevens to record Marie and make it a big hit so that I didn't have to be a fry cook anymore in 1979. I owe you everything.